Lee. Warm welcome to our Take a Closer Look podcast with Squiz.
Thank you.
I am super glad you actually said, yeah, all right, you twisted my arm. I'll do this. And to join me to have a little chin wag about life and learnings.
Mhm.
So, for our listeners, as an intro, Lee, you're currently the head of digital at Grains Research and Development Corporation, or GRDC, as we like to say it.
Correct.
And you've had a career spanning over 18 years in the digital experience space.
Mhm.
So, needless to say, there's a whole lot of things that we'll get to talk about. So, why don't we just dig in, shall we? Why don't you tell me about you as the person first, and then we'll probably take a little jaunt down memory lane to your career journey towards your current role.
A little jaunt.
A little jaunt.
Yes, I'm currently head of digital at GRDC. Been there a bit over 5 years, heading into 6 years. I am quite an independent person. I think I'm quite friendly and approachable. Some might say I'm slightly sarcastic. um, I love to travel. I'm very close to my family. I think that plays a lot into my work life as well. I think I'm quite an authentic leader. I think I focus a lot on the people around me. And I think that comes across in who I am.
And I can attest to that. I think I've known you for, I say what, must be 2 years now.
Yeah.
Coming to 2 years.
Yeah.
And the key thing that I've always loved is your authenticity and the fact that you're also brutally honest,
I think that's a new one to add to the list, to be honest.
which is actually a fantastic trait to have, I think, particularly as a leader, particularly when we're working with so many kind of remote teams too. Like they need to know who they're dealing with, your stakeholders need to do the same. So, another reason why we decided to say, hey, we have to get Lee on the podcast. So let's talk about your career journey. What's that been like for you? Because you've been around in this space for a while.
Yeah, it's been a mixed journey, to be honest. So, starting out in hospitality, very creative side to my personality, as well as a sort of analytical and very interested in the data. So, I headed the hospitality route to start with. But then also, a lot of my friends were heading into public service, into private enterprise. So, I was missing that 9 to 5 kind of job opportunity. So, I shifted into the office environment. Started working for a company that focused on SGML. So it was a markup language for legislation online. Very early days of that kind of approach to digital, and that piqued my interest. Pretty much stayed in that sort of digital online markup language sort of space over the course of my career. Been in private, I've worked for not for profits, I've also had public service roles. But splattered through the middle of that, I also trained to be a croupier. So
Flattered. I love that.
yeah,
Flattered and croupier is not what you hear.
no, never quite letting go of that sort of creative side. So trained to be a croupier, worked at the casino for a couple of years while also working office jobs. So always had that sort of side to me that's been interested in that. But over the years, it's moved more into that digital space. I've worked, yes, in the public service, in private, not for profit. I've had a good run at Engineers Australia, was made redundant from there. And then I moved into public service, and now I'm here at JRDC. We're working for the grain growers in Australia, so we're really about making them profitable. We are spending growers' money, so it is a bit like a not-for-profit kind of organisation.
But I think for those who don't know, GRDC, the grants that you provide are massive, and the amount of funding that you manage is huge.
Yeah, the business invests over 230 million a year in research and development and extension for grain growers. I'm part of the digital team, so I'm at the end of the line in terms of communicating and extending that research information once the research is complete. It's a very interesting role to be in. I don't know a lot about grains, but definitely learning over the years. But I do remind people I've been brought in for my digital experience, not for my grains background.
It could be for your croupier experience too.
It
You
could
never know.
be. It's come up a few times.
Now the whole world will know. But to the point, I don't think I've ever heard markup language interest, croupier, and grains research funding in the same
Yeah.
career. So that kind of leads to the second question in a way. There's many facets, it seems, to the Lee. So what would the friends and family describe you as versus what you think your team and your colleagues see at work?
I think they would see very similar. Say it as it is. I'm quite authentic. I don't have a different persona for work or for personal. So friends would describe me as calm and friendly, approachable, very independent. I think I touched on the slightly sarcastic, my love for travel. I'm close to my family. My work colleagues would say the same. They would know all of those things. The thing that's probably a little bit different is my family don't see me in that work environment. So they don't see me leading, they don't see me running team meetings, presenting big projects, delivering presentations to a lot of people. They don't necessarily see that side of me. So that's one thing that, yeah, is probably the difference.
To that point, I think no doubt you lead a lot of teams, you have led teams. So you're probably inspiring a lot of people. But on the flip side, who has inspired you instead?
Might seem a little cliche, but it's definitely my parents, my mum and my dad. They both bring a different perspective to my personality and my upbringing, which I really admire. And I couldn't think of an individual in my work life that inspires me, but it's strong women in leadership roles. I really admire women in those roles, you included, that really inspire me just to bring that confidence as a woman into those leadership roles and just own them. I just think that's so impressive.
And I think you're actually probably the second or third guest who's mentioned their parents,
Yeah.
um,
Okay.
which, which is actually fantastic. We're always looking externally for some icon or some sort. Really being grounded in how you were raised and the
Yeah.
values you grew up with is
Yeah.
fantastic. And to your point, it's funny because we talk about women in leadership and how far we've come, which we have come really far, but it's still something to recognize when you
Mhm.
have achieved something in that space. So I'm glad that you're also leading the charge yourself,
Yeah.
which is fantastic for those coming up behind you. So you started in hospitality and you
Yeah.
said you spent your time in comms in not for profit and
Yeah.
you worked your way through kind of leadership roles in digital.
Yeah.
What specifically about your career and that pathway were really memorable for you, like real milestone moments where it either made you take a next step in your career or made a big difference to you in terms of your life and your choices after that?
The biggest one was probably when I was made redundant. So I'd been in the organization almost 10 years, probably not settled, but got comfortable. Very shocked. Had never had anything like that happen to me before. This is where mum and dad come into play. Gave them a call. Oh my goodness, headed straight there. I hand dad the paperwork. I hug my mum. Dad's looking at the finances to make sure his daughter's going to be okay. Mum's emotionally there for support. She said, "You'll be fine. This is a great decision." And I think it's that I reflect on a lot, that it could have gone very differently if my parents hadn't been that way. That dad's, you've got a week, you're allowed to wallow, and then that's it. Now we're on and looking to the next thing. That was pivotal. That was pivotal in realizing that they probably didn't value me for me, and that had just become, yeah, just become stuck a little bit in that
Yeah.
role. The next one was in a public service role. So I got, not long after, got a job. I was within 4 weeks, and of course, I managed to fit in a trip overseas before I started the new job. Got a bit of travel in there. And then that was public service, and that didn't quite fit either. I felt like I was a bum on a seat. I was keeping the seat warm. It wasn't about me and Lee. It was about just filling that role to do a digital job. I was there for a couple of years, but after a while, I was like, this isn't quite right for me. Started looking. And the other pivotal moment was I interviewed for my current job from Iceland. So again, I was on holidays. It
But they
was
love
from,
your travel.
I reflect on that often too, that I had the courage and the confidence to interview from Iceland on the phone at 5 a.m. and I felt confident I could do it. That's when I think I had started to lean in a bit more to me and valuing me as a leader and an expert in digital. And having the confidence to do that. Yeah, there are some big ones.
The interesting thing, recently there have been so many layoffs and they continue to be, right? COVID was a bit of a tipping point, but we forget that it happened a long time ago as well.
Yeah.
But it was probably, to your point, a bit more of something that people didn't talk about as much when it happened back then. It sounds as though naturally you took a hit in the confidence, but what do you think it would have been like if you weren't made redundant and you were in that company for 10 years? Do you think you would have stayed there for even longer without that push, without that kind of trigger?
Yep. Yep. Got comfortable. Yep. Was sitting. It wasn't ideal for the last probably 6 months, but I've always gone in with a positive attitude. It'll be fine. It'll turn around. It'll fix. It'll be
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, I think I would have. I think I would have stayed on for longer. Possibly got more unhappy, but wouldn't have made the change.
So for those people who might be listening in and thinking, I'm in that same position, like I've been here a long time, not quite sure whether this is for me, but I'm comfortable. What
Mhm.
kind of advice do you think you would give them?
Something that was of value to me was they did offer me career counselling after I was made redundant. I thought, do I need that? And so I actually did take it up and went and spoke with a lady who helped me with interviewing and preparing me for getting back into that sort of workforce again that I hadn't ever done. So I hadn't actually stopped and looked at myself, how I present, what I'm communicating in interviews, the right structure, very much public service too, of course, but that definitely helped to stop and think a bit more. I wasn't just on the treadmill, just following the cycle of life. I was actually now stopping to think about what more I wanted. And so that was also excellent. So I would suggest, yeah, reaching out to someone that can help you unpack that a little bit, help you with what direction you might want to head in and prep you a bit more for interviewing because I hadn't interviewed for over 10 years. That definitely helped.
I have been talking to a few folks recently, some of my network as well, who are thinking, oh, now's the time to actually change my career in this. It's almost the barrier of having to prepare,
Yeah.
having to do your CV, having to think about what you want, having to do an interview and apply almost holds them back from actually doing
Mhm.
it sometimes
Mhm.
because it just seems too hard, right?
Yes. Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
A lot of work, but got to be willing to do it. You can't just sit back and wait for it to turn up necessarily. You might have good networks and be very lucky, but I think it's worth putting in the effort and doing that sort of thing to start that ball rolling.
And you probably, I think one piece of advice I was always given is if you're ever doing that of your own choice, always try to leave on a high and
Mhm.
said, don't wait until you've come down into the pit of despair
Yes.
before you start
Yeah.
looking, because then you get desperate and then you just make the potentially wrong choice, right?
And I haven't had that opportunity yet. I
Yeah.
haven't left on a high necessarily. So I don't know if that's a bit in me that I just want to keep doing the best that I can, hang on
Yeah.
this wall, or it's just the way life has gone for me. But one day, one day I might leave on a high.
You talked earlier about how the next step you took, you were unhappy and you felt like you were treated like a number, etc. You talked about the fact that you have a lot more self reflection and therefore self confidence in understanding the value you bring to an organization. Well, what did you look for and what could you advise others to look for in a company? Like, how do you recognize if somebody's going to value you? What experiences did you have yourself in the interview that
Mm, mm.
made you think, yeah, I'm not a number?
For me, it's about making a difference as well. GRDC is about grain growers in Australia and making them more profitable and doing more for the economy in Australia. So that also resonated. I'm not just building a website for the sake of building a website. I actually am doing it for purpose. What was interesting in the interview was they were talking about the struggles they were having in digital. The website was put up as an MVP, so it wasn't fully rolled out when they had some restructure and things going on. Hearing was that search was really bad and websites not working and what are we going to do about search? And I started to ask some questions. Tell me, what do you mean when search isn't working? What are the things that you're hearing? I think you need to unpack X, Y, Z, understand a bit more about the system and the results and the things that are happening, and just the looks on their faces was like, oh, okay, I think they're actually listening to me and respecting that might actually know what I'm talking about. It was, yeah, quite surprising and very nice. I was doing the first interview over the phone from Iceland, but then I had to follow up, catch up in Canberra. And yeah, when they said search was a problem, it was let me understand it a bit more. I started asking some questions and trying to drill into it a bit. And I think that made the difference as well.
Nice, nice. And obviously, you've progressed in your career now. We talk a lot about kind of confidence and imposter syndrome, and you feel as though, am I doing the job I should be? Should I speak up about something that I don't think is right? Do I back myself, etc.? Have you been on throughout your career that journey? And how have you come to the point where I'm backing what I'm doing? And if something doesn't seem right, I'll speak up about it. What needs to happen to be able to get to that point?
It's interesting. It has been a journey, as much as that's a cliche as well, but it's been in the last 6 or 7 years. It's coming out of that public service role into this role, having the people around me respect what I know, what skills and expertise I have, that I'm not just sitting in that seat, but it is actually me that they value and the advice and knowledge that I bring that has brought up that confidence, has allowed me to lean into that a lot more, to actually speak the truth, to know that I am an authentic leader and that is what I am bringing to the table as much as my skill in digital. I had the trust from my manager at the time to just do what was needed and get on with it. I'm probably not good at speaking out when something's not right. I'm still working on that. I think that's my personality as much as anything, that I don't like conflict. I don't like to disrupt too much. So probably careful about how I go around that. And then the other thing I would add is that we've done a lot of work around profiling, understanding your leadership style and those sorts of things. And that's also helped me validate the type of person and leader that I am, and that I am an S in the disc profiling. So I am that steady, stable, calm type of leader. And that is me, that reflects me. And so it's if I just be me and I'm doing a good job where I am now and I'm being successful, then that works. And that's how I've been over the last probably 5 years. Yeah.
In that sense, that's interesting around understanding your self profile as a leader. Did you do the same thing with your teams? Does your team have their own profiles? And does it actually help that I don't know what your team's makeup is in terms of their profiles? Are a lot
Mhm.
more of them very different from you or similar to you?
Yeah, a couple of them are similar and some of them are very different, but it works. We complement. I get complimented often on the team culture that I have. I say, oh, I just got lucky. And no, I don't think you did. They see I work hard at it, and that it is part of the way I lead, that I get success by investing time in my people. We go for coffee together every morning, all of us. And some people think that's a bit odd. Like, why would you do that? Because I don't talk to them every day. I'm flat out in meetings doing 100 other things. But when I need them, they're there for me because I invest some time and energy in trying to catch up with them every day. Yeah, it's helped me to just lean into that even more and know that actually is working and that others are seeing it. And it's something I should be proud of and not just doing because it's me. Yeah.
I like that. And I
Mm,
think that is pretty important, particularly when so many of us are working remotely. Checking in, even if it's on Slack or even if it's on an email or a phone call, etc.
yeah. Yeah.
It does seem like it's so busy, you gotta make the time to try to do it and make space for that.
And I know that makes the difference in delivering a good project. If I've got the team there supporting me, supporting each other, then if we need to do something quick, everyone rallies. Not an issue.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, you were talking earlier about getting to the point of the confidence and still needing to work on speaking up. This is the part of the podcast where we talk about how you and I met.
Yeah.
Uh, so I joined Squiz over coming to 3 years ago.
Mhm.
And I think about 10 months into my tenure, we were running our first massive customer conference back since COVID. when everything shut down. And I think it'd been the first time in a while that Squiz was able to reconnect with our customers face to face. And we were in the conference. It was towards the end of the day. It was like towards like last keynote, and then it was drinks time.
Mhm,
And I saw you outside the foyer,
mhm.
outside the keynote. You just hanging out outside. You weren't in the room. And I was like, oh, have to. She's alone. I got to go and have a chat with her. Make sure I'm talking to our customers. And I remember just, oh, hi, how are you? And you introduced yourself, etc.
Mhm.
And you told me you were with GRDC, etc. And you've been with us for a while. I'm pretty good read on people, and I could sense that there was something you weren't quite telling me about your relationship with Squiz at the time. And it feels as though that there was a sliding doors moment where you were trying to figure out what you told me. Can you walk our audience through what was going on in your head at the time and what happened next?
So yes, that was 2022. Myself and my digital manager came up to Sydney for the conference. We had just signed off and got endorsement for our digital strategy at GRDC. So first digital strategy for the organisation. So pretty big deal for me, for the organisation. And so we've come to Squiz to the conference to learn about all the new things, all the great stuff you're rolling out. We're just in our bubble at the table, just listening to all of this great stuff. And we're talking. Why aren't we hearing this from Squiz? What can we do? Oh my goodness, this, that, all these things can just really help us deliver on our strategy. And then the lady sitting next to my colleague goes, "Oh, excuse me, sorry, I'm just listening. You're making lots of notes and you're having lots of conversation. What's going on?" And so we just making conversation. Said, "Oh, we're hearing all this great stuff. We've not heard this before. My goodness." I looked down and she's the global head of customer service. I think she was at Squiz, and I was like, "Oh, okay, we're in it now." And then people started to come and sit at the table, and I think it was co-founder, I think it was JP, I think there was an ex-board member, I think there was the CEO. We just looked at ourselves and we're like, wow, this is like the VIPs of Squeeze. And then, yeah, it's a bit later on out in the foyer, and you come over and we start talking. And I actually had thought Regine or someone had come and worded you up to go and find me.
No,
But
I didn't know
so
anything.
no, so it was just lucky. But I was saying to my colleague, "Well, we're here. We've definitely made it clear that not that we're unhappy, but that we're just not getting what we need from Squiz." And if nothing else, the top 5 executives are now very aware of who GRDC are. And then, yeah, we had drinks with you and was that JP, I think?
It was our CEO, Gav, yeah.
It was Gavin, yeah. And you were just so receptive. Everyone was actually really open to just understanding more about us, understanding more about the business, where we were going with the digital strategy. I think it was an eye opener for both sides that I wasn't communicating that back to our account manager, and then we weren't also getting it back from Squiz. So we left that day and talking in the taxi to the hotel going, was that career limiting? What have I just done? Please. I mean, there's honesty and then there's honesty, but I was like, no, I stand behind all the things I said to
Mm.
you and everybody else. It was a positive experience. Everyone was willing to do what needed, and it was pivotal. Our relationship has changed since that moment.
One of the things that I still remember you saying, which was a dagger through the heart for any partner to hear, but it was such a concise yet clear statement. I think you said, I look at you as someone who keeps the lights on. If something's wrong, you're going to fix it. That's it. Where do you think we're today? Like, where do you think that relationship has changed?
And I do think I contributed a bit to that feeling. I don't think it was just Squiz. It was once we got the digital strategy that I was actually able to say, this is the strategy, this is the direction we're heading in, and this is what we need from you. And that Squiz were like, let's sit down, let's talk about it, let's work out how we can do that together. We got a new account manager, much more strategically thinking. We had a good success planning session, I think it
Yep,
was,
that's
like
right.
really sat down and actually worked through what we needed and where Squiz were playing that, we're in a much better position now. Yeah, it's been a great 2 years. There's been a lot that's changed with us and with Squiz that we're now talking about you as our strategic partner. Yes, you keep the lights on, but you're also helping us with innovation and change and new tech, taking us into DXP, supporting all of the projects we've got going on. Yeah, it was pivotal, but it was excellent.
It was probably career limiting for me at the time. Going, oh crap! If this is what you're thinking, what else do we need to fix? But I think I would say most of the time the onus is on the partner to make sure that we have that relationship. We create that confidence where you feel as though I should tell you about this strategy. So I
Yes.
think it was a really pivotal moment for us. Your honesty kind of was a great spark for us to just go, what we're doing is not good enough. Our customers, particularly coming out of COVID, right? Like were forced into having to deal with a completely digital
Yep.
experience. And how were we actually helping with that? And I don't think we did that well enough. And your honesty was something that we embraced because the great thing about working here is that the culture is about humility. If we were, frankly, up ourselves
Mm.
and gone, yeah, sure, great, one customer, who cares?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
but I think it was very much, it was almost the opposite. Everyone was like swarming and just going, okay, this might be an indication of something more than that. And it really does test the metal of are we humble enough and to listen and take on the accountability to fix the problem versus being defensive about it. And for you, it's about do I actually talk? Like you could have just gone, I don't need to say anything. That's
Yeah.
fine. Why rock the boat? They're just doing what they're doing. That's fine. But you also chose to put your neck out there to be uncomfortable with us. And I think that's the true metal of a great partnership where you can be open and brutal in a constructive way around this is what I need of you as a partner,
Mhm.
and this is not
Mhm.
what I'm getting. And then we as a partner need to think, oh, what are we doing that's not allowing you to do that or not making it conducive for you to do that?
Ever since that day, I walked away going, they know how I feel, they know what our position is, let's see. And yeah, this was instant. And I think, yeah, we've been that way ever since. Very honest, very open. You clearly know what we need and where we're at. There's no secrets. So yeah, I think that's been good for everybody.
So we're more than support now, which is
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, I think that story I think was so important because I think there's a lot of other listeners who might be in those similar relationships with their partners, whatever the partner might be. And I think what I'm hearing from you is there is value in being able to test the relationship by being honest.
Yeah.
And if the relationship doesn't turn for the better on both ends, then is it the right partnership for you to keep continuing with or not? So
I
that's
just
great.
maybe not aim for exec level, maybe just aim for mid-level someone.
You only go big or go home. That's a good segue, right? Like you talked earlier about how you're smack bang in this major transformational project in the digital area that you're working on, my GRDC.
Yeah.
And what is whether it's that or something else, what's been the toughest assignments you've had to deal with around transformation? And can you share a little bit more detail around that, around the challenge and what the objective was and the context and how you're specifically trying to deal with that?
I think the current project is probably the best example of that. I've spent the last few years building up the digital capability and capacity of the team at JRDC, written a digital strategy. It's been really about foundational work and getting us to a position where we can then start to look forward. And this project, my JRDC, is a logged in personalized portal for our stakeholders, first foray into that sort of personalization. So we produce a lot of content, a lot of research, a lot of articles that we publish on the website, but aren't really personalized. So it does come back to the issue of when I first started search being a problem, but really it was the content underlying metadata, taxonomy, all of that work wasn't making things easy to find. So this portal is challenging on many fronts for the digital team, for the comms team, for the business in general to really move into that next stage of transformation in starting to now personalize the information that we're putting out, putting the control into our users or our stakeholders' hands to define what they want rather than us telling them what we think they want. Yes, other organizations are doing that now and have portals and they've been doing it for quite a long time. But for GRDC, this was quite big, great, exciting opportunity for me, and I'm not shying away from it. But it does come with some challenges in changing business practice internally to prepare ourselves for this. It's not just a digital initiative that we put up a portal and everybody's happy and we go back to our day. So as much as I'm now leading the technical build and rollout of this product, I'm also now having to tackle a bit of that sort of internal change management and get the business understanding what does this actually mean. There will be a change internally into how we communicate and extend our information if this portal is successful. I've taken a lot over the years in my career into this project. It's probably one of the biggest of my career. But surprisingly, I'm not scared. I'm not shying away. I'm not too worried. I'm leaning in pretty hard and I'm excited. It's hard work. It's a lot going on, but really enjoying it.
Why do you think you're calm about it? I know your profile is you're a calm individual anyway, but
Yes.
why do you think that there's a calmness around it?
I think it's because I wrote the digital strategy. It was in my vision for the organization and our digital transformation. So I've known this within myself since 2022, 2021, even, that this is where I see we needed to get to. So I'm going into this now with complete understanding of exactly what we need to achieve. And when I know something, I'm there, I'm good. Ask me anything, let's go, no problem. If it's something I don't fully understand, that's where confidence drops a little. "Oh, I don't know. Oh, I can't." But I've had managers and my boss say to me, "Oh, listen to you. When you get talking about this stuff, you know it."
You talked earlier as well about stakeholder management around the change required
Mhm.
and being able to speak with confidence, right? Going not just the one or two layers down, but have going deep if you need to,
Yeah.
going wide if you need to, gives confidence to the stakeholders that you've done the thinking.
Yeah. And then I'm a people person, so I want everybody to understand it's not just about technically building, it's bringing the business along. So been told I'm probably a good person for the job because I can get out there and talk about it, put it in terminology they'll understand, bring them along on the journey while also developing this product.
Can I ask you, for those who are sitting there maybe for the first time or they may be struggling to do this anyway, coming up with a digital strategy almost sends off alarm bells and fear in some
Yeah.
people. That sounds way, way too big and too complicated. I have no idea where to start. What kind of maybe tips could you give someone around how do you actually go about starting a digital strategy?
So for me, I've had a few change in reporting lines over the couple of years I've been at JRDC. And so the manager at the time, as I was getting the digital strategy draft complete, was like, surprised you hadn't done this years ago. And I was like, oh. And so I went away and I thought about it and I came back to him and I said, actually, no, I needed those couple of years to understand the business, to understand exactly what's happening, not just in my space, but across the organization, that I need to be making a strategy that is delivering for the organization. So for those couple of years, I was capturing pain points, successes, things going well, not going well, feedback I'm hearing from people as it happens in a Miro board. So just post it noting and just starting this sort of collection of all the things we're hearing, all of the ideas I was coming up with off the back of hearing those pain points, and then just had to put myself away and start to unpack all of those post-its and start to bring them into sort of categories. What was also a challenge for us was I describe this strategy as it's not just all forward looking. It is a lot of foundational work that we still had to do. So it was being able to articulate that in a way that we get this foundational work done, it leads us towards this. Got to be able to think about what are the transformations that you want to work towards, but also what's right for the business. We're not just going to do chatbots or AI because it's the next cool thing. How does that fit into the business? Take some time to think about that. Do your sort of mind mapping, your sort of post-it notes is how I like to do it, to just gather that and then slowly put it together under themes. So I've got 6 principles underneath that strategy that we align to, and is working very well.
And once you get the strategy, who do you go and socialize that to first to get by? What are the sequences of stakeholders you engage with?
So in our business, we're a little bit structured a little bit differently. So we have a digital team, we have a communication team, and we have an extension team. Typically, I would say in other organizations, they might all be together in one team. So a lot of consultation with the comms team who do all of the content, the media releases, all that sort of communication. And then also the extension team who are out there talking to our growers and advisors and understanding what's happening on the ground. So I did a lot of consultation with them, and then it was taking it up through exec and getting that sort of official sign off, knowing that they were comfortable that we had socialized it.
Now, any landmines that you stepped on, that big or small, that you think if somebody in your position could hear this, run a transformation, it would help them?
So to give you an example, this is going back a fair bit in my career. I was developing an intranet for the organization. It was their first ever intranet. So we're talking in probably 2006, maybe 2007. So they used to run a contacts list on a spreadsheet, and that's what they referred to as their intranet. So I was brought in and developed their new intranet. And I was so excited. I was presenting to the Canberra team. I was just like, here's your new intranet. And I don't know why, but I thought I'll put up a silly splash screen for a bit of a laugh and say, here's your new intranet. Had a little butterfly in the corner and had a silly background picture. Nobody laughed. Nothing. I'm standing up there. It was so awkward.
Why?
Okay. Because no one knew what an intranet should be. So I actually thought that was their intranet. Oh my goodness. Okay. So then I went, wow, sorry. Actually, here it is. And showed them that, yeah,
Oh my gosh.
on reflection, know your audience. You understand that they may not know what you know.
It's
Don't
true.
come into it with that sort of expectation that they know exactly what you're talking about. I'm talking about the My GRDC portal now.
Yeah.
People don't necessarily understand what a portal is.
Yeah.
So I'm having to break that down. But I've learned now to not go in and make any assumption that people know exactly what you're talking about. And ever since that day, one of my strengths now is being able to talk technical in layman's and really be able to unpack that in a way for the
Yeah.
audience to understand. I get the technical, I know what's happening over there, but I'm very good at now, translating that in a way that they understand. So I focus very much on who is the audience, almost in every interaction, every meeting, every presentation, every opportunity like that now. Don't assume that they know exactly what you're talking about, because they
And
may not know what an intranet is.
And I think what you're saying is true. Essentially, a lot of the digital and marcoms teams who are responsible for digital experiences are change agents.
Yeah.
And we spend a lot of time thinking about what we're doing and what we're launching. And to your point, like if it touches any internal stakeholder who has to be a part of that, unless you actually break it down for them, they could sit through a whole presentation that you've prepared
Yep.
and then just not cared enough to say, I don't get what you're saying, and then walked away. And that will probably be at the detriment of that launch.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And to my success, exactly. I
Yeah.
need those advocates in the business to help this portal be successful. Yep.
Brilliant advice on that front. Don't assume. There's a saying around that, but I'm not going to say it on the podcast. So let's close up on digging into Lee a little bit more on a personal level. We talked about the importance of spending. You travel a lot,
Mhm.
spend time with family. You find ways to get the creativity and the inspiration elsewhere.
Yep.
You did do something quite amazing. I found. I think it's probably you told me. I think we were having a chat, and then you told me you were going to do this
Yep.
at the end of 2023, you said that you read 29 books over the
Mhm.
course of the year.
Mhm.
That's over 2 books a month.
Yep.
Why did you do that? Like, why was that important? It was amazing. I can barely get through a social post.
I didn't think that was a lot. That was a lot for me. That was a challenge for me, but I didn't think in the whole scheme of things that was a lot. But yeah, you're one of a few that have said, wow, 29. Okay, that's impressive. I think work can consume you if you're not careful. And that I was trying very consciously to find things outside of work to spend my time on that is meaningful. And knowledge is power and all that sort of stuff. Not all of the books I've read was work or nonfiction, but tried very hard to just get something positive and actionable out of that sort of spare time rather than just trying to get over the work week and get back into it again. And I'm on it again this year. So I'm
Oh,
continuing with book reading. Yep. Yep.
doing it again.
Yep. I'm up to 22 already.
Oh
So
my goodness.
yeah, loving it now. It's really just ignited the passion for reading again.
I
Yeah,
love that. What's one book you recommend? I'm putting you on the spot.
it's my head. I just have to look quickly now.
I
Just
know, because now it's 50 plus books you've read.
actually, it was Arnold Schwarzenegger's Be
Oh,
Useful.
I've heard
Seven,
that.
Seven Tools for Life. Yeah, I think I did a LinkedIn post on that because it just was so interesting. He's just so structured and just planned and executes and no mucking around with him. Was so good.
Wow, okay.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
is the mantra what was the mantra around be useful? What was his
That
angle or principle around
that
that?
that came from his father. Always be useful. Always have something that you're doing that's useful. Don't be sitting down mucking around. Don't be wasting your time. If you're exercising, make sure it's useful. Exercise hard. If you're gonna go into acting, be useful. Make sure you act and do it to the full capacity that you can. Commit all of yourself to it.
Wow,
So
that's great advice. Clearly, he was successful because he was then governor as well of California, the size
yep,
of most countries,
yep.
and he did a fantastic job there too. It's a good segue. He learned something from his father.
Huh?
You talked about how critical your parents were in supporting you when you were made redundant a long time ago when you were a lot younger.
Yes.
What how did that tough love and the empathy bit influence you?
It's dad's tough love that really drives me to get in and get stuff done when it gets difficult. It's always been that it can be done. You just have to work through it. But I'm very lucky in that I have my mum's emotional intelligence. So I bring that angle into it as well. It's not just the analytical, the black and white that dad brings. I've got mum's emotional intelligence, which I've been blessed with, that I leverage now a lot in my career than I have in the past, knowing that it's a strength. But dad's tough love is just always in the back of me when I need it to push through. Don't use it often, but when I need to, it's there.
It's there. Yeah.
It's yeah.
I love it. I love it. And then lastly, before we close off,
Yeah.
there's a lot of listeners that would hear this and go, that's very familiar to me in terms of the story, but they're in a different point in their career, maybe, or they want to aspire to where you've taken your career or where you've taken your confidence and how you've overcome challenges in the past and come out so much stronger and sure of yourself. What kind of what are one or two things that you leave with the audience who are looking for that guidance?
It's not an easy one. It took me a while, but for me, it was finding my passion. So I love the digital space. I like working with people. So for me, it was about finding my passion and then learning as much as I can. You've got to do what's right for you. I think you've got to try and recognize that if things aren't necessarily going in the direction you want. I was forced into it, which I'm very grateful for. So I might not have otherwise. And lean on your strengths. Yes, you're going to get told what some of your weaknesses are, but you can work on those. But in the meantime, it's lean on those strengths. Ultimately, that's what will bring you success and take you in the direction you need to, and back yourself. I didn't back myself enough. I do now. So that is making the difference to being able to deliver on these great projects.
And to your point, it sounds as though you are following Arnold Schwarzenegger's advice.
Yeah.
Whatever you love to do, lean into it to the hilt. And as a result of that, you're going to get the confidence you need to back yourself and keep moving forward.
And interesting, my father's name is Arnold.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. He gets referred to as Arnold Schwarzenegger sometimes too, that very tough love, very strong approach to things. But yeah, I think that's just the family values as well as a bit of Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Thanks to Arnold, Dad,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's been fantastic. Thank you so much for
Oh,
sharing
thank you,
all this.
mate.
This has been a fantastic chat, and
Yes.
thank you so much.
Thank you.